I am someone that has been illegally put on a watch list, okay? A watch list by those who simply don't like me, okay? But not just those who simply don't like me. There's a bigger issue and a bigger reason why that was sought in the first place, okay? So there's a watch list that you can be put on in America if you happen to be, uh, if you are someone that's considered a conspiracy theorist, a radical. Um, Technically, it's supposed to be if there's an issue of a real terrorist threat. That's what the program is for. That's what the funding is for, technically. Okay, that is what it was created for. Now, that's not how it's being used. Okay. So I was somewhat put on that list. I was already a targeted individual. I was already being stalked and followed by family, by secret society type groups, okay, for reasons to do with money, big money, okay, that I had no knowledge about, okay. Inheritance, gifts, all sorts of things that have been playing out with groups that believe in human sacrificing, but various different reasons. So that's always been going on. But as it pertains to how it escalated into what I see today, okay, that required to be put on a watch list by law enforcement, okay? Law enforcement, government, somebody who is in a position to do so, because not anybody can just decide to put, somebody on a watch list. So I was put on a watch list illegally for various different reasons. Okay, one of them is that there is somebody who looks at me as competition. They are also social media content creators. They are possibly related to law enforcement, a friend of law enforcement. They also dated people or a person of my past, okay? So their motivation, whether they are saying that or not, is to do with that, okay? They looked at me as a threat, they looked at me as competition and wanted me out of the way. Also had a hidden vendetta based on the fact that I dated somebody, whatever the case may be. So they decided to manufacture something to make up a reason as to how or why I should be put on a watch list. And their connection to corrupt law made that very, very simple to do. Okay, that's the problem when people have authority or connections with that and folks don't have integrity or a sense of balance about how they're utilizing their position. Okay, that's what happens. And that's exactly what happened to me. Okay, this is how it escalated from what it was to all of these various people, no matter where I go. Okay, all these cars, all these that's how, because the funding is available for that. Before, it was on a smaller time scale. Now, it's on a larger scale because someone that was in that position also collabed with family members and stuff like that. So it did all intermingle together because it served the purpose for the family members, because they need me gone, because they don't want to have to own up to what they've done or give up what they've stolen. They don't want to have to face that, okay? So it all works out in that sense for them, okay? Collaborating, making deals, giving them parts of what belongs to me and my son, on top of the funding that they're getting, government funding to be on this watch list, to be put, with these fusion centers, to have these people basically illegally surveillancing. And why I say illegally surveillancing is because if they don't follow due process, they all have my son's address. So at any given point, there could have been something mailed as a mailing address to my son's address if really they wanted to go through due process with some kind of so-called charge, okay, accusing me of being whatever they're trying to say, the reason I should be on a watch list, okay? It's bogus, but I'm just saying, either way it goes, there is due process to that. They did not do that, okay? And it goes past surveillance. If it was just about surveilling in and of itself, then they wouldn't be doing the hostile, aggressive military, war tactics, okay? If it was simply just to watch, okay? To surveil and to get info, okay? FBI, CIA and other agents, they practice those things daily when they're investigating, and you'll never know it, okay? Because they are legitimately, simply just doing that. You'll never know it. You're not going to have them circling you. You're not going to have it. You're not going to have them hurling things out of cars, yelling shit. You're not going to have them making a fool. You'll never know it. You have to be super, super trained to even be able to pick up that they're anywhere near you. Okay? If they're just trying to surveil. Okay? So that's not what this is. And I know that's not what this is. And as I said, this happened because somebody thinks some competition. And these people live in the same complex as my son. At least, some of them are starting to move away or go on vacation. I don't know. But yeah. And so some of them have been a part of the complex since it was built. So that means this whole community could have been turned into a cult. Okay, just based on that. Now, so that's how they did that. They wanted to get rid of me. They wanted to affect, if you get put on a watch list, this affects your social media. Okay, all of these things, believe it or not, they're all tied. It could affect your viewers, followers, subscribers. This was a way to so-called get rid of the competition so that they, to slow that down. Okay. That's one of the reasons why that happened. Again, it's all tied to ex-lover. It's tied to people who don't like me. Another reason why things got heightened is because, like I said, obviously I'm a social media content creator, but I am an activist, and I do, speak out about a lot of things that really ruffles feathers, especially as it pertains to, violating the displaced or vulnerable population, that which represents my son and myself and many others. Okay. And basically it's messing up the money with that. Okay. These are people who, want to make a career and want to make it big in life and have a savings and not have to on the back of innocent people. Okay. That's just the bottom line. No matter how we want to flip the pancake, participating in such, knowing full well what they know, means that that is essentially what it is. Okay. And so, various different radical groups don't like me. Like I said, this is how it morphed into what it's become. I've been being watched on social media the entire time. So it just stirs all of that up. Nobody asked these people to watch, but I mean, that's essentially what happens. Okay. I did not outreach or even advertise, which is something that I normally do. I really didn't. Okay. So it ain't even like that. Okay. So these are people who, again, and that's how they got all of this to get as big. Okay. Another issue that happened with this whole sacrificing of me and my son for money, because that's what it is. Period. The end. Okay. But another thing that kind of really riled it up is some of these are people that I had to stand up to at some point. And even, listen, when you hear stand up to, it doesn't mean that somebody's eyes were rolling and their neck was rolling and they were popping gum and they were loud like Shanae. You know what I'm saying? It's not always like that. Some of these people just don't like nobody standing up to them. Period. Okay? You could be as professional, cordial, as you could be. But the fact that you speak out on something or assert when they think that they're superior to you or better than you or you're beneath them or whatever, there's many reasons why people have issues with somebody saying, hey, that, you know, that's not okay, or don't speak to me this way, or, that wasn't right, that wasn't correct, and I'm going to report that. Like, a lot of it is vengeance, because I have the spine to do what a lot of people are afraid to do. And they're afraid for the very reasons in which I experienced, but I was born for it. I've been experiencing this shit forever. Okay, I didn't know a lot, that I was experiencing this kind of shit, but that's what some of this is. These are people with authority, especially if you want to go towards like management, people who are in certain positions. As it pertains to them, it's, usually a combination of, if there's any prejudices, and prejudices could pertain to anything. Partiality, because they homegirl was the wife or the girlfriend of the, people have all kinds of biases lurking. Okay, they're friends with your ex, or they're friends with your ex's ex, or they are of another culture, or you're too dark, or you too light, or you too this, or you're not enough that, or you see what I'm saying? People have a lot of reasons lurking under them scalps, okay, as to why they have an issue with that you without there being a legitimate reason to. Okay, and that's what happened to me. That's why I say it's a melting pot for me as to why all of this is happening, and why it kind of snowballed into it was big, but it snowballed into subsectors because of this. Okay, you still deal with racism today, especially in the South, but you deal with it everywhere. Okay, and you deal with colorism, and colorism, again, that's the same thing. We've seen this on Blackish, where it was a discussion about light skin versus dark skin and how that affect, people and so forth. That's the thing. Even though people, because of PC, they put on a show, they put on a role as if that's not what's happening. Okay, and they'll even reference, the homegirl is wooty woo, or the homeboy, or woo. Like, they'll always have one token. They call them tokens. Okay, the token. It's like, you can't say I'm that way because look it. So that's what's happening with me. That I have the misogyny. So for some, it's because I'm a woman, and they are in this toxic patriarchy vibe. Okay, and they feel some kind of way about me. So again, spirituality, religion, viewpoints, philosophical, political bents. This is what has influenced all these people. I'm gonna say it right now. It has absolutely nothing to do with whatever the fuck they trying to say it's got something to do with. I guarantee you that. Because listen, most of these people, and I'll say it this way, I have a card in my deck that says, neighbors should have stayed in their place. The honorable ones know their secrets. And the reason why that card is there is because, again, these are people who are trying to basically entrap folks like me, trying to scapegoat us, single us out when they know full well, when they know full well, on top of, not only do they know full well that chances are whatever they're trying to pin y'all for, us for, that they doing it themselves, or the homie is, or they have done it, or they allow, okay. On top of the fact that they have underhanded, nefarious dealings to begin with. Okay, that it's fascinating how they try to really get a campaign for such. But when you look at it in the end, it's kind of like, well, yeah, myself or the collective, we are the evidence. Okay, so to me, just in critical thinking, I can see why they would do all of it. I'm not saying it's the correct thing to do or just, but I'm just saying, if you have a persona that has to be upheld, if you're, you're supposed to be upholding law and certain ordinances, and you're supposed to be, a pillar of society, and you have these things that's in place for the world, and nobody don't know about this other stuff, yeah, then the collective is, yeah. It's no different than the movies we see, and you see these killers, these big time killers, and then if a person saw it, then the witness is at risk because they are the proof, and it turns into, it's a bounty on the head of the witness. Because make that go away, then the problem of us ever being found out goes away. And that is why me and my son have had our health and our well-being attacked physically, not just with the spiritual work, which it needs to be said, it is a thing. And that is something that they're doing on this property. Okay? These folks are a part of this cult. So they are doing that stuff around the clock. And that needs to be noted for FBI, in terms of folks that know the legit motherfuckers, that know the deal here. But the reason why they try to affect our health and well-being is to also affect our credibility. So it morphed into now calling in favors. We got all these subsector people that have an issue with me that's not well, possibly, but all too willing to put stuff on stuff in stuff in order to affect me and my son's health and well-being. And if it affects our health and well-being, like I said in the earlier video, something has got to give. Okay? They know full well what the hell they're doing. They know they're making noise all 24/7, bluesy blue. They know that they're tampering with shit, trying to play head games. You see what I'm trying to say? So that's so that, something has to give. And then as I or the collective go to try to get assistance, then it's like, oh, they just like some kind of frantic, whatever. Essentially what's true about them. Okay? They even do rituals to, I believe that, to send like a filth to your apartment, or, what I'm saying? That this is how low people are at this point. And it's in combination because some folks simply just want that money. Other folks, like I said, control freaks, ego issue, how dare I stand up? How dare I say something? How dare I walk away? Because in a lot of cases, I simply just stopped messing with folks. Once I knew what I needed to know, saw what I needed to see. It's really that simple for me. And in terms of abuse and like when people violate me, then yes, I am going to speak out. And that's what the revenge is about. Because I wouldn't just go away and put my head between my tail. I wouldn't just go somewhere and die. And these people are still, see, here's the thing. They're still at that. They're still attempting to sacrifice me and my son for money. They are still doing everything that they've been doing. There's nothing that has changed. They just shuffled the deck and maybe rearranged some things. But not, that is still the same. Because they went from putting stuff outside his unit to coming in and putting shit inside his unit. They're trying to manufacture an accident. If you can put some stuff in the unit that compromise the health, that cause something to incapacitate us. You see that? To me, you ain't got to be that smart to be able to even sit there and even figure that out. So this is also a distraction tactic. It's to, I see all what it's been. Basically, I've been reflecting the last couple of days as I've been cleansing and going through the massage unit. I mean, going through it. The stuff that gets neglected as I've been dealing with all this shit. And that's what I realized, like, I see it. You know, creepy maintenance people getting caught lurking about. Like that's, yeah. So we possibly have groups like skinheads, KKK, radical religious groups possibly, you know, weirdo spiritual groups that see me as a problem. Like, it's just, and then from earlier, you all heard me say something about famous people, which just blows my wig off. Because I'm like, you can't be, man, how low can you go? But see, that's what happens. You know, people look at that whole arena and it's like, you covet it, but it's like, why? If you knew what they really were and what they really become and how far you know, what they become. Because maybe they don't start off like that and they morph into monsters. You know what I'm saying? They start to objectify and dehumanize their targets. Like, I want that. Like, that's not a whole fucking person. They got everything, and yet they still want something else. That's the problem. See, let me stay focused here, because see, that's the problem, isn't it? It's like you have everything, but you still want, what's wrong? When does that end? It's like you done made 1,000 this, you done made 1,000,000 here, okay, and you worrying about Sally Sue, you know, Too Sweet, or whoever she is or they are. You know, some up and coming entrepreneurial, somebody that's, you know, authentic, organic, and, you know, cheap to the whole shit. You worry about them, you want they shit. When does it end? Be crying if it was them and they little Susie. You see what I'm saying? Trips me out. Anyway, that's what's happening. Okay, that's why, you know, I have been illegally put on the list. I will be attempting to. I don't know how I'm gonna get it remedied, but I'm gonna get through all of the red tape. That's why my approach has been, I got my hands into several places, because I've learned over time. Sometimes motherfuckers is involved in it. Okay, and sometimes hierarchy is designed to be able to basically keep fuckery going, because if you go through the hierarchy, then they can try to do some kind of preemptive strike and get ahead of it, just, you know, blase before it gets to the top dog and all of that kind of shit. This is why sometimes we have to do away with the rules so that we can get to some real justice. So, as I was saying, that's what's happened. That is why I've got all these massive cars and all these various different people from all walks of life. I mean, I've got Teslas following me around. Teslas, y'all. People in Teslas. And the thing is, whatever this major shit is, it's to keep me and my son impoverished. That's a main part of it. That's why my work was attacked, and that's why anything to do with finances and work and stuff, because these are things what we use to to take care of ourselves, which means you're able to grow and evolve and move past and do all sorts of things. It was an attempt to make me to be stuck here, which was dumb. That was a dumb move on their part, and they'll see later. Okay? That was dumb. But it was an attempt. If you can affect that, then she ain't gonna be able to go nowhere. Yes, the hell I am, because guess what? Didn't have shit when I came from Nevada to here, but it happened, huh? Uh-huh. So they possibly thought, that I would want to fight to hold on. But here's the thing. That's a yes and that's a no for somebody like me. If me and my son's health and well-being is being compromised, literally, no. If a whole country, town, city, state is on some trash shit and basically looking at me and my son like kibbles and bits, no. We are nobody's come up, and they about to find that out. Because where they have come up, they about to go down. Okay? I don't really care about the root and the heart of why it ever started. That I could care less. I'm a person. My son is a person. He didn't deserve that. I certainly didn't deserve it. We don't deserve that. Period. We're not entertainment. All this stuff. Nah. I'm putting judgment on that. Like I said, I'm an activist. And I speak up, and I'm speaking, and I'm leading the way. Okay, especially for folks who don't have nobody, because there's a whole lot of folk that they don't have nobody, and folks like these people, predatorial type, parasite types, they play on that kind of shit. They take advantage of that, and it's disgusting. So I will continue to speak out on that, but that's also why I'm assaulted. I'm hoping that as I'm sharing all this, it's helping folks to see and know and understand why is there such a target on me. I just laid out so many reasons. Now, have I done anything to these people personally? No. Even as it pertains to my son and any place he's ever lived and what kind of resident he's ever been and all sorts of things. No. And that's another fascinating story, because it's like you hear stories about landlords getting some troublesome residents, don't pay their rent, they're a problem, they fighting people, they call, just all kind of extra. Not the case in the whole 3 years, almost 4 years that my son has had a residency with these complexes. Neither of us, no riffraff, no traffic, no loud ghetto acting company, no none of that. His rent's paid in full all the time. Rarely kick up any issue with anything. Report if there's anything going on with unit. Kept up his unit, didn't tear it up in terms of, you hear stories about people tearing up, like literally tearing up shit. Didn't tear it up. Regular standard wear and tear that you expect when somebody live in a unit for a significant amount of time. And yet, this is how I started figuring a lot of things out, because it's like, if I'm not a problem, he's not a problem, then what is the problem? This is what helped me to come to start investigating a lot of things. Because none of that should have had anything, people's personal stuff pertaining to who I am, what I do, all that shit. None of this personal shit should have had anything to do with where my son has lived and the dealings with all of that in these environments and such. He and I stay away from people. For the most part, I attempted to befriend folks. I would ask for rides, especially in the beginning, because, you start your life from scratch. You're trying to find your way. But at some point, I just realized, like, So folks basically came for me and my son. Then they thought we were some easy targets and this was a meal ticket. And then their hatred and unnatural passions just, helped the situation to evolve. Pertaining to lovers, exes, people's family members, my family, church groups, all these different things and so forth. Because see, people are watching me. And then this is where a lot of the fuel is coming from. Case in point, I've been trying to tell officers they watch me online and then they'll show up if they see me live. Just a week or two ago, one of the young ladies that live here in Building 6, the day with the kids acting a fool, that was her. In the black Mercedes. That was her. Which was the same one that came to the mailbox earlier today when I was there. See, these are things that I've discussed with police, but I'm gonna continue to make report on, and even I'm doing other reports, not just with the police, but FBI and all those other things in the background. Because I have tons of information, not just that. But you see what I'm saying? How this thing, why it got like that? Yeah, they're watching me on social media. And then they send their little kid on their skateboard and they send the little children. And then they just so happen when I click live to have to go to Barnes and Nobles. It's obvious. And these are folks that are in this cult. They're doing root work. They're getting deals, possibly for their vehicles, their rents paid, all sorts of things here. And they obviously don't like me. You see what I'm saying? But it's in part because of the incessant watching. So that's like the fuel. Because I'm going to still speak. I'm going to speak the truth. If it don't apply to you, it shouldn't matter to you. That's how I feel. I heard somebody 3 weeks ago, a lady. Some of these folks are older. The one I just mentioned is younger, but the other one I'm about to mention, she got to be my age, maybe. She got to be my age, which is I'm almost 50. And because of my senses and hearing it and tapped in that way, and as I'm out and about, sometimes I can pick it up. And I heard her say, "Did you see her online today with her? She went on, she thought she with her, blah, blah, blah." That's the problem. So now, if their cult leader has told them to watch me, well, then they need to work that out amongst themselves. Because, this being a part of their assignments or whatever. But that's what's been going on. And this is something that the world is going to see and understand, if they haven't already, real soon. The issue that they're all trying to rally is bogus and bullshit. It's a ploy. It's to scapegoat me and to cover up a whole lot of other shit that they are afraid of being found out.